Chris, I'm so excited to have you here as a guest on Product Growth Stories. So we're going to dive into your growth journey with Searcheye, and you've really accomplished phenomenal growth. You've got companies working with you from the Fortune 100, like NASDAQ, Vimo, AT&T. So very excited to dive into the journey that you've had with Searcheye. What inspired you to start Searcheye in the first place?
First of all, yeah, thanks for having me. Love the past, so excited to hear myself on it after this. Yeah, we went through an interesting journey to get here, to be honest. My background's actually in banking and finance. And one of my clients at the time asked me to go work with them. They're a law firm here in Toronto. And they're like, you want to do our SEO? I'm like, oh, absolutely. So I did what anyone would do. I Googled what is SEO. I'm like, okay, I can totally do this. They didn't have ChatGPT back then. So I had to actually do the research myself. And I'm like, oh, I could totally do this. And while working with them, absolutely crushed it. Ranked for pretty much every major keyword. They were generating hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just in free organic traffic. And which was great. Everything's going well. And for me, the next step was, how can I scale this? How can I automate this? How can I really build something that's replicable that I can do across for other law firms, for other industries? And so the first step was around software. So we built a database working with thousands of different publications. And we started applying that to other clients we were working with. And then come 2020, 2021, we basically flipped it and said, hey, instead of being an agency or a productized agency, we're offering kind of our platform, which is now Searcheye, to users. So made it simple enough where a user could log in, make purchases, things like that.
So that means originally you were building this tool as an internal tool to help you find more high quality, high domain authority, relevant sites and backlinks. And so you built this tool and then realized that itself is a product that you could sell. Is that right?
Exactly. It was a pain point for us. So we imagined it was a pain point for lots of other agencies.
My experience is not in SEO. So I like paid ads, I like expensive traffic and outbound. And so I'm going to apologize in advance if some of these questions are obvious if you're in SEO, but how are you affected right now by AI? This is what I'd love to ask you, because everyone is saying, okay, we're going to lose a little bit of traffic because you're going to get your question answered. But clearly that's not the high intent traffic, right? It's the how does this work traffic. And I'm curious, like, where do you see the future of SEO given what we see today with AI?
To be honest with you, when we raised our pre-seed in 2023, I was scared. I don't know if I can say I was scared shitless of what was going to happen. And the opposite happened. And one of the problems that I think we faced was we anchored so heavily away from SEO and away from link building. Our direction is more around authentic connections. So it could be getting mentioned in a publication. It could be, for example, helping you find guests for your podcast to get visibility. It could be social media. It could be anything, email newsletters, Substacks, et cetera, et cetera. And so our goal as a platform, we didn't care too much about the SEO piece. It was more around, how do we connect brands with publishers? We know that one thing is true, that authentic connections are going to get more valuable. PR, that is going to get more valuable. I think even paid has a lot of challenges right now. Like collecting data is going to get tougher and tougher, like cross platforms. I know Apple, for example, shutting down things, it's going to get more expensive. That's clear. And there's been a constant trend for the last 20 years, we could say, where paid traffic's getting more and more expensive. And I think it's not clear, even with Google, with AI overviews, how does that get integrated deeper and deeper into the platform, and what impact does that have on paid search? So for us, I think we anchored maybe too heavily away from SEO, and we were wrong. Where we see search going right now is what you mentioned, the bottom of the funnel traffic's doing better than ever. Google searches are actually up about 10% year over year. Despite everyone saying is search dead, it's growing exponentially, and search is growing. It's scaling so fast cross-platform. If you take like TikTok into account, you take Google, Instagram, YouTube, it's just the search space is actually really exciting now, though there's not necessarily a clear way on how to really monetize that at scale yet.
That makes sense. And one thing I'm curious is, how do you generate top of funnel awareness? Is it entirely SEO, or do you use other mechanisms to get new people to become aware of Searcheye?
So we do eat our own dog food. Actually, one of the things we're working on right now, which I'm really excited about, is we're working with publishers to basically collect visitor level data. So do you imagine that we published an article for, let's say, HubSpot? It could be like top 10 digital PR agencies, hypothetically. And we actually have a script on that page where if someone visits it, we collect certain user level data that we can use for prospecting to enrich paid ads. For example, we can sync that data up with Google Ads and things like that. We're building tools into Searcheye that we're using for ourselves as a marketplace to scale up our user base.
Yeah, I'm glad you eat your own dog. Of course you do. But every now and then you meet a marketing agency where it's, wait, why don't they do their thing?
It's because we don't actually know how to do it.
And I'd love to hear a little bit about the fundraising process. How did you make the decision that it made sense to take on outside capital to grow versus doing it with your own cash flow?
We were bootstrapping for the longest time. I loved it. But it came to a certain point where it was slowing down growth, couldn't hire the right people, and there was a few other challenges that we faced. Part of the fundraise unlocked two things for us. One is, as a funded company, you can attract much higher quality talent.
Because you're funded and it puts your company in another light.
Exactly. And the second thing, the connections that we've built through our investors have been invaluable. We actually have quite a few investors on the cap table that are prominent in the search space, as well as we have investors that are well connected with media and have other connections as well from a business development standpoint and things like that. So when we were looking at the funds, I think we underraised, but we still got the benefits in terms of those connections and the value that provides, which to me is like the best of both worlds. We look at it from three perspectives. One is like, how much capital do we need, or do we need it at all? Do we continue bootstrapping? What does our like hiring look like for the next couple of years? And then three is, what are we missing outside of capital that'll help us scale faster?
Those kinds of relationships, you can't really put a value on them because, at least for me, I always love this phrase, the most expensive thing in your business is what you don't know. And outside perspectives are amazing at solving these kind of unknown unknowns.
Absolutely. And I think going into it, we ended up building a much better business and probably a different business than we would have traditionally, because we were afforded the chance to make a few mistakes as well and learn from them.
Yeah. What is your favorite mistake?
Oh, I could go on forever. I think like the last 2 years is constant mistake after mistake. I wouldn't call it a mistake. It was a learning. So part of what we did when we raised the funds is we said, okay, let's solve these problems with people. And that works when you have product market fit or some inkling of product market fit. We weren't there yet. We had product market fit on the brand side. So that's someone like who wants to buy mentions and get in the media, but we didn't actually have product market fit on the publisher side. And we ended up scaling the brand side really quickly. And for a lot of investors, they wanted to see certain metrics around revenue. So we were driving a lot of revenue, but we weren't scaling the publisher side fast enough. And even worse, the publisher side was completely manual. Like it was all.
Okay, so I wasn't thinking of you as a marketplace or your business like it, but now I see that point of view. And I'm wondering, like, what did the publishers want that's different that you were having trouble scaling? It was lacking from the PMF point of view.
One is they couldn't use the product itself. It was all email driven. And I think back now, it stresses me out. Like we had at the peak, like 50 people who were literally just sending emails back and forth, following up with, it was awful. It's like a human CRM. And it was just a complete mess. There's so many mistakes, so many errors. We sent the wrong content to the wrong people. And since then, so part of it was like, okay, let's really focus in on this is the problem. And we started training some of our larger clients because we couldn't fulfill fast enough. Stuff got lost in the process and everything. And so we built, if you think of us as a marketplace, you're almost like a SaaS on two different sides. And then that kind of connects. And so we built a better experience for publishers where it was really quick to onboard. They could manage all their orders in there. And as we move more and more towards a PR co-pilot or an AI agent for your PR, I'm building tools in, like, for example, if a publisher wants to edit content, they can just write, I don't like this, or can you come up with a different pitch, whatever it is in plain English. And our system will auto-generate everything in real time for them. So we built all these tools for publishers to easily make changes and edits, integrated things like WhatsApp into the process, which our email response rates are like 30, 40% transactional emails with publishers. So we started building all these tools to make it easy for publishers to receive these orders and earn more money. And so we really focused on that. And I think in hindsight, I think we take the investor money, tell them we're stopping all sales, give us 3 months to do this properly, and then back to the market. Instead, we're building an airplane while it's flying.
It's so hard to do that. Everyone says that, oh, if we knew we were going to grow like this, we would have fixed some things before we scaled along. And this adage that every system is going to break whenever the inputs or outputs change about 3x or 10x. Did you find these breaking points did you find that to hold true, that at those points, like all the systems just didn't quite make sense anymore?
I don't think break is the right word. Let's collapse. Complete collapse, implode. There we go. Yeah, basically when we hit a certain revenue target, I think in like last June, we got to I think 1,000 or 1,200 orders through the platform. That's when we completely collapsed because we were hiring basically one service agent could support like 50 to 80 articles. One writer could do 20 articles a month, 30 articles a month. So if you think about at 1,000 articles and you just take those numbers and they scale linearly, which is the worst. We're at like 50, 60 people and it just didn't make sense. We're a product company. We shouldn't be doing any fulfillment on our end. So we went to the drawing board again after this. We had all this data. We knew what people were looking for. We had a really good process, but it's okay. How do we now rebuild this process using automated workflows, AI, and everything else? And that's how we've gotten to the point today where now we're at 7 people, but now we're all focused. All 7 people are focused on solving problems to make the product better versus doing the work.
It's all boat go faster.
Exactly. It's so nice. Like at a weekly team meeting yesterday, and people are now coming up with identifying the problems and they're identifying solutions versus before it was like problem.
This has got to feel so good coming from people banging away at trying to get the thing out the door to deliver. And now you have a team actually proactively working on fixing it. That's an entirely different animal.
It's amazing. And I think the team we have now is, I believe it's a world-class team, but it took a lot. When we talk about mistakes, like it took a lot to get there.
What advice would you give to other people who are trying to make a product that find that there's a lot of manual work in the fulfillment? I know in the startup world where this is the like move fast, don't build a whole, like just see if it works with however much duct tape you need. But your experience is a little different. And I'm curious, what advice would you give to founders that are...
I've been thinking about it. There's a few things, and you probably see it working with SaaS companies every day. I think the bar nowadays does need to be a lot higher than it was. Start small, get feedback, and iterate. I don't know how easy that is nowadays. I know for us with a marketplace, you naturally have a moat at scale and you can build tools to make it more efficient, but I'm not too concerned about bugs or mistakes there. But really, in hindsight, I would spend my first month just talking to 2 users. So identify ICP. And I know it sounds boring and no one wants to do it, but really that's what we've been doing as we've iterated. Now I take on about 100 calls a month talking to our ICP on one side and then talking to our ICP publishers on the other side. But just talking to as many users, make notes, categorize all the data that you get, and use that to really figure out what you need to build. Otherwise, you're building for a blank void.
I so agree with you. And unfortunately, I do also like business consulting for SaaS founders as well. And sadly, I have spoken to multiple people who will get really excited about an idea and they ask around. Everyone says it's a great idea and they will spend 250, 500K on development before they've spoken to 200 users. And the odds that idea is right are so low and it's completely unnecessary.
I would go even a step further. If I were to redo it again as well, I would collect a deposit from every single person that I talked to. And if they said, no, I want to wait, then ignore everything they said.
I think that's a solid selling it first is a bigger trade that you really do have some interest in the product. Absolutely. Yeah. And personally, as a marketer, maybe it feels obvious to me, but not everyone believes this. I think the distribution is more important, especially early stage, than the actual product. Especially now, the market is very saturated. And I know founders, we often believe, I'm so much better, I'm so different, but the customer might not know. And what you do is help people build distribution. I'm curious, where do you stand on this? How do you value like the value proposition versus the distribution? What's more important?
So I agree. 100% agree with you. I'll say that. But with a caveat, because we had a lot of challenges with fulfillment and operations, the distribution piece was what originally led us to growing out a lot of demand for the product without having infrastructure to support it. So again, a marketplace is traditionally going to be a lot different than a SaaS. If you're a SaaS platform, whatever that is, it could be a CRM, it could be some sort of tool. Generally speaking, as you get more users, the cost to service that user is quite low. And if you're a SaaS, if you went from 10 users to 1,000, you're not going to stress the product. There might be some stress there, user requests, infrastructure, etc., but it's relatively small. You're going to actually require more, probably support is where you're going to have the largest stress on the team. And so distribution is great if you can handle it. It would be, what is the minimum viable team I need for X amount of revenue? And then figuring out, okay, we have a solid base here on resources and we know how to scale up resources, but distribution trumps all. Even for us, it solved a lot of problems early on, and kind of money does paper over every problem.
For a while.
To be honest, for a while.
You hit some kind of maximum pain line.
But I would say definitely, I do it myself, but we anchor more to like product knobs. And I think if maybe we're being overly cautious, given some of the challenges we were solving. But now that we've solved those, we've productized, we're really focused on distribution. I would have, in hindsight, probably started a lot earlier if I had the resources. And now we're anchoring more and more towards distribution, which I think is ultimately much more important. And you're never going to die by focusing on distribution. You can definitely die if you're focused just on product.
Excellent. This has been a really good conversation. Thanks so much, Chris. And I'd love to know, do you have any parting advice for people who are also working on marketplaces? What's your best advice for them 2025?
Don't do it. Probably the number one is you don't have product market fit until you have product market fit for both sides of the market. It's really easy. Let's say you're in Upwork and you've talked to 1,000 users and they've all said, oh yeah, I'd love to use Upwork to find contractors. That's great. But you have to do the same on both sides. So take everything you're doing and multiply it by 2, and then add a third one in there for managing the 2 pieces. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned through the process is we were scaling really fast. We were bringing on big brands, but we only solved one side of the market. And ultimately, you don't have product market fit till both sides demand your product.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you.